Welcome to another one of these short videos where we review 2 quick cards. Last video we may have done a redundancy and I completely messed up on that. My bad. But that's all right. I think it's fine. So we're finishing up Black Widow. I think these are going to be the last 2 in Black Widow. There might be one more. I'm not 100% sure. But we're going to be talking about a card that I love. I love the card. I think it works great for solo. And then we're going to talk about another card that was not great back in the day, but because of some changes they made, it's actually, I think, really good now, or it can be really good. So we're going to dive into those 2 cards. But before we do me a huge favor. Make sure you hit the subscribe button down below. It really helps the channel. I really appreciate it. Hit like and comment in the video because this isn't a one-way street or anything like that. I want to know your thoughts and opinions about these cards as well. So make sure to put that down there. And turn on notifications so you know when new videos come out or I go live. It's a lot of fun. So let's go check out these cards. All right, so the first one I want to talk about is Surveillance Team. Again, they have no image of it for whatever reason. But it's a 2-cost Justice Support. Uses 3 Snoop counters, and then you exhaust Surveillance Team, remove 1 Snoop counter from it to remove 1 threat from the scheme. Now, when this came out, people are very just meh about it. I mean, it was like used now and again, but nothing too crazy. And it was fine. Like I rarely saw decks built with it. A couple people would use it in very like interesting ways or weird ways, but that's it. Like you generally speaking, didn't see this card being used. But when they came out with Miles Morales and a little after that, they really focused on some shield stuff. And they did the whole shield rebuild or aspect focus or whatever, trait focus, I should say. And they came out with 2 cards that kind of like really helped this. And actually, we'll go over this one first, Monica. So Monica, again, came out in the Sinister Modus box, 3112 stat line. After she enters play, search your deck, hand, and discard pile for a copy Surveillance Team support and put it into play. Place 1 Snoop counter on each Surveillance Team you control. So this was interesting because you can have up to 3 Surveillance Teams in play at a time. So if you had 2 and they each had 3 Snoop counters on them, then you played Monica, you would get the 3rd one in, and then they would all have 4 Snoop counters on it, so they could do a little bit more, which was kind of interesting way of doing things. And this pairing works really well. Then you can also use Homeland Intervention, which was an interesting card. 0-cost event. Exhaust up to 3 shield cards you control. Hey, that's a shield card. And choose a scheme. Remove 2 threat from that scheme for each card exhausted this way. So instead of now exhausting 3 of these cards for 3 threat removal, using this event, you could exhaust these 3 cards for 6 threat removal, right? Essentially doubling it. And you're not even losing the counters, which was really kind of cool in how it worked. Now, there's other shield cards as well that do things and that interact a little bit, but to me these are like the 2 bigger ones or the ones that I at least use a lot. But anyway, the longer point of this story is that Surveillance Team, and there's a lot of cards that are still out there that are quote unquote not as good, right? You don't get to see how they would really be used. You can't really picture it, whatever it may be. Years later, 2 years, 3 years later, they came back and redid this card basically by helping the support cards around it, which should give you a lot of hope and a lot of faith that they can do this with other cards in the future, right? This was a card nobody even complained about because they kind of just like, whatever. I guess it's just a miss of a card, and they turned it more into like a thing, which is really cool, right? And they can still and hopefully still do more with Shield moving forward. But anyway, so this was a card back in the day. It's kind of like whatever. But now, if I'm playing a Shield deck, yeah, okay, this is getting paired up in there, and these 3 cards are generally always in there, and some of the other shield cards too. I didn't want to spend a ton of time talking about all the other stuff you could do, but these are like the 3 that I think, to me at least, stand out a lot. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is counterintelligence. I feel like this is a card that doesn't get talked about as much, but I really like this card because of solo, right? Because of true solo. So it's a 2-cost upgrade, max 1 per player. When any amount of threat would be placed on the main scheme, discard counterintelligence to prevent 3 of that threat. Now, at the time, it's just kind of like, whatever, just, confuse the enemy and move on with your life. This is what I would consider like a quote-unquote soft confuse for a solo player. This card will allow me to flip down, right? And then the one threat goes to the main scheme or whatever it is for the first step. And then when the villain schemes, generally speaking, they're only scheming for like 3, maybe 4. So they're putting on 0 to 1 threat on the main scheme, and I didn't have to confuse the villain. Why is that important? Well, a lot more recently, especially with some of the tougher villains, they're all stalwart or they're all steady, and it's a lot harder to use a confused lock type build against them. This card gets around that, and that's why I really like this card. I use this card a fair amount. I think it's an incredibly strong card. Again, for solo. I think for multiplayer, maybe if you had a bunch of them out there, it's not bad or whatever. It actually might work well for multiplayer if you flip down and you give it to your teammate who could flip down, right? And you can each prevent 3. That's a decent enough strategy. But again, I like this card. I think this is also a card that got a little more use because of how more prevalent Stalwart and Steady is nowadays. So it's definitely a card that I used a bit back in the day. I feel like a lot of people did because of preparation. They messed around with Black Widow and they kind of like put it in the back burner. But to this day, it's still a card I use a ton. All right, hopefully you're enjoying this video series. If you can do me a huge favor, make sure you go over to twitch.tv/D20 Woodworking. Hit the follow button, turn on notifications so you know when we go live. Generally speaking, we're playing Marvel Champions Sunday nights. We're playing 2-player games Friday nights, and Tuesday's a random game. I don't know. We've been talking about doing some hostage negotiator recently, which could be fun. I don't know. Maybe you want to be a part of that. Be a part of the career, and you can help define what my career is like. But anyway, join the community. It's a lot of fun. The live streams have been really, really great. And let me know your thoughts about these cards. I'm always interested. I love reading how people use them because, again, I don't want to make it seem like I'm perfect and that I know the best way to use all the cards. I don't. There's a lot of cards out there I might not use as efficiently as I should, or I may be overlooking. And I'm always interested in learning from the community how they use those cards. So anyway, appreciate if you leave a comment. Again, subscribe, all that fun stuff. See you all next time.